Welcome to another episode of Design Theater. Today we're going to be looking at the comic artist Moebius. See, there's a lot of new subscribers, so just to kind of reintroduce to the channel for those that are new, I'm a comic artist, I'm an illustrator. I have a free comic that you can get in the description below as a download. I've been taking like these public domain stories from a science fiction writer named Philip K. Dick, who wrote Blade Runner, and I'm adapting them into comics. And his stories are really trippy, and that was one of the reasons why I wanted to look at Moebius today, because I'm always looking at other comic artists and like trying to take inspiration from them. And Moebius is his stuff looks so completely different than what you get from other comic book artists. His stuff is way trippier than what you would normally expect. Because typically, we think of whenever you think of comic book art, you think of superheroes and that sort of thing. But this guy was a French comic book artist, and I actually don't know that much about his personal life. But I brought up some images here. These are more like full page spreads that he did for some of his comics, and some of them are just illustrations. I didn't find a lot of sequential stuff for him, but let's take a look at some of this awesome art. I mean, what I like about this sort of stuff is the way that he plays around with stuff that's very abstract, right? I mean, like this kind of has a hallucinatory kind of effect. Like, is this guy taking some sort of a drug or something, and some sort of a god is emerging before him? But I love the way he illustrates the background of the landscape as very simple. He's not doing anything too crazy. But then we get like a lot of detail in the face of this monster looking thing. But then we see as we get closer, it's like an amalgamation of faces and bodies. And it's interesting that there seems to be a guy here, or some type of person or alien or something, that looks like maybe they're kissing this guy, which is interesting. All right, we get this guy, like it's kind of implied there's some sort of kissing going on here. And then we can kind of see this demon kind of looking at us directly from behind this figure, which is a really interesting representation. He's just got so much detail in these pics. And as we go through here, I'm going to try to make these videos real short, but as you go through here, you'll see his stuff is just it's so iconic. Nobody's really, a lot of sci-fi guys have been influenced by him. I'm definitely influenced by Moebius, but nobody really gets that same kind of psychedelic kind of feel that he has. This stuff is very unique, very uniquely him. Great use of color. It goes to show that you really don't need a lot of detail, and that's one of the powers of comic art, is that you can get away with simpler illustrations because they're illustrating a story. It doesn't have to be super rendered. This one is crazy. Let me pull my panels to the side here and zoom in better. I mean, that looks like the cover of, I don't know, like a Led Zeppelin album or something. It's something that I'm going for with my work, is like I miss the kind of the old 1970s science fiction, psychedelic, fantasy type stuff. Now I think the sci-fi design stuff, a lot of it just starts to all kind of feel the same. But his stuff always feels fresh to me. I'm pretty sure they've made some animations out of this stuff as well. But yeah, it's beautiful, beautiful color work. Again, it shows that if you just understand how to contrast these, you have this warm color over here on the right, and then you have this cool color over here on the left. And then of course the cool background with the warm shadows on the clouds. That's a good combination. Again, you can see the use of contrast in these pieces. Now, I've talked about this in previous episodes. We can see the contrast of, on the left here we have pretty much no detail. We have very little detail on this figure as opposed to this giant head here. Right. Let's just take a look at it here for a second. So it looks like this is some sort of a, again, these all feel like they're gods or something like that. But then we zoom in and we see that there's a person sitting inside this head talking to another person. Seems like there's even two people on the wall, or maybe two smaller people. So are they in a room? I mean, so much of that is left open to interpretation. But yeah, I mean, he's just got, and then we have these little figures that are buried all over the ground. That's so interesting to me. This guy to me feels like somebody who was really locked into his intuition and what that meant for him. What that meant for him was completely surrendering to his creativity. It's another beautiful piece. All right, I've got a few more. Let's go ahead and get through them. Yeah. I wonder if the idea here was like abstract ideas or systems of belief or something possessing people, because I kind of get that feeling from his work. Now, what's interesting to me, I've heard people like Carl Jung say that ideas have people. It's not that people have ideas. Ideas have people. It's almost like ideas purposely seek out vessels in order to be expressed. And that's what we're doing here whenever we draw. And if that is the case, then this guy was really keyed into that. He was really channeled into the source of all creativity. I mean, look at that. That's just awesome. And another example of, using rhythm and using design, like I've mentioned before, you have big, which is like this big shape right here. You have medium, which would basically be this right here. And then you have small. So you have big, medium, and small shapes. And then, of course, there's small shapes down here as well. All right. So there's a contrast between these different elements. You have small, and then you break that up. Like if you thought about it as being sectioned into these different areas, right, almost like 3 different areas, you would say that you would put a lot of small shapes down here, and so that tells you the next design decision you're going to make is you're going to contrast it with a big shape that doesn't have a lot of subsections, right? Because this is basically just what I mean by small shapes. Really, we could just say subsections or subdivisions of a shape, right? Like there's lots of subdivisions within this shape, but not in this big shape. And then we have the contrast of this big shape. We contrast it again with these medium shapes, which are like these more organic shapes that curve up. And then we get this interesting design. So this top part even contrasts against the bottom part. So it keeps it from being boring. And then of course we have this UFO looking thing above everything. All right, we got a couple more. I'm gonna go ahead and let you guys go. Hopefully this isn't too spicy for YouTube. Doesn't look like anything sexual going on. But yeah, a lot of his stuff has to do with like shamans and whatnot. I really like his stuff because he inspires me to want to do something else other than, superhero type stuff. I like the more sci-fi, psychedelic, horror related comics. I think the superhero stuff's kind of played out at this point. Another really cool piece. And that's it. That's all she wrote for today. Alright guys, I appreciate you for watching. Please like and subscribe. Drop a comment in the description of another artist it is that you would like for me to look at. I try to have one of these every day of the week, and then I also do tutorials where I go a little bit more in depth into different artists, and I'll do one for Moebius, which will be longer ones. But I also plan on doing like art of like Resident Evil and art of Oddworld and that sort of thing. So those will be coming up, and those will be longer episodes too. All right, guys. Thanks for watching, and have a good night.